Have you ever been reading the Bible, hit the book of Leviticus, and just felt like you were wading through an endless, exhausting architectural manual, right? Well, welcome to today's Explainer, where we are unpacking a truly fascinating premise from our source material. The text isn't just giving us dry dimensions and random lists. No, it's using a deliberate, hidden, visual language full of patterns and symbols to communicate some profoundly deep spiritual truths. And today, we're going to decode that language together.
Which really begs the question, doesn't it? Why would an all-powerful God care so much about furniture? I mean, it's a completely relatable frustration. You're reading along, trying to get spiritually inspired, and suddenly, bam, you are totally bogged down in exact cubit measurements, specific curtain colors, and the procedural designs of priestly garments. You kind of start wondering, couldn't God just tell people to worship him sincerely? But here is the massive curiosity gap the text presents. What if these aren't just boring, decorative details? According to our source, these elements are actually a highly advanced visual cipher just waiting to be understood.
To unlock this cipher, we have to look at the exact instructions God gave to Moses on Mount Sinai. Quote, "See that you make everything according to the pattern shown to you on the mountain." Now, what's really interesting about this is that specific word, pattern. It is absolutely everything here. The text emphasizes that Moses wasn't some creative architect inventing a brand new design. Not at all. He was carefully copying something. He was replicating an existing heavenly reality and literally bringing heaven's architecture directly down to earth.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at heaven's language of order. Second, the symbolism of biblical objects. Third, we'll decode recurring themes and numbers. And finally, the ultimate prophetic pattern. Laying out this information in a clear, ordered way actually perfectly mirrors our source's overarching theme. Deliberate design brings true understanding.
All right, let's jump straight into part 1, heaven's language of order. Before we look at specific objects, we really need to understand a foundational, sweeping claim made by the source. And that is, God is not the author of chaos or confusion. No, he is the ultimate God of precise, beautiful order. The text points to creation itself as the absolute first piece of evidence for this. Just think about it. He separated light from darkness, divided the waters, created predictable seasons, and established fixed laws of the universe. I mean, from the precise rotation of the Earth, right down to the literal intricate design of the smallest human cell. Creation itself is proof that heaven communicates through organized patterns. The universe didn't just emerge through chaos. It was carefully, intentionally ordered by divine wisdom.
Okay, let's dive into this with Section 2, Symbolism of Biblical Objects. Now we're getting to the core focus. The tabernacle is presented by our source as the ultimate case study for divine patterns. Every single physical object inside it was engineered to carry deep, prophetic meaning, acting more like spiritual technology rather than just, furniture. Let's break it down real quick. The bronze altar? That wasn't just a metal fireplace. It physically confronted worshippers with the severe cost of sacrifice, creating this incredibly visceral sensory experience of atonement. Then you have the laver, which required a physical cleansing with water, mirroring a much deeper spiritual reality of purification before you could even approach the divine. Moving inside the holy place, the golden lampstand provided actual illumination in a dark room, but fundamentally it stood for divine, heavenly light guiding humanity. And the table of showbread and the altar of incense, these brilliantly transformed everyday human necessities, like food and smell, into perpetual reminders of God's sustaining provision and the upward continual ascent of prayer. And finally, at the very center of it all, the Ark of the Covenant topped with the mercy seat. This didn't just hold stone tablets, it represented the literal, heavy presence of God, where mercy finally triumphs over judgment. Every single object was tactile, sensory, and entirely prophetic.
So, what does this all mean? The absolutely crucial point here is that these are earthly designs reflecting heavenly realities. All of those tactile objects we just talked about form a complex visual language, acting as a physical shadow of heaven's true architecture. The tabernacle was essentially God using physical, earthly symbols to explain his grand, eternal plan of redemption to a human audience. It wasn't just a tent in the desert, it was a physical, pedagogical manifestation of heavenly truth, specifically designed to teach the Israelites exactly how to interact with the divine.
Moving right along to Section 3, Recurring Themes and Numbers.
You see, this highly symbolic language isn't just limited to one single tent in the wilderness. It spans completely different biblical narratives, from Joseph's dreams all the way to Zechariah's visions. We actually see a progressive language built on recurring elemental symbols. For example, water consistently means cleansing and new life. Fire embodies God's presence and consuming holiness. Oil signifies divine anointing. Bread is foundational provision, and blood represents life and an unbreakable covenant. The text points out that these aren't just isolated metaphors used once and tossed aside. No, they pack layers of meaning that continuously build, echo, and unfold over generations. It's actually the exact same teaching method Jesus later used with parables about seeds and vineyards, using very familiar earthly pictures to progressively reveal complex heavenly realities to anyone willing to seek understanding.
And this hidden language extends directly to numbers, too. Now, in our modern world, we tend to view numbers strictly as mathematical quantities, right? Just raw, strict data. But the biblical text, according to our source, treats them qualitatively. 7 frequently represents completeness or perfection. 12 represents divine government or the structuring of God's people. 40 commonly marks a period of intense testing or preparation, and 3 points to divine fullness. Now, I should add a quick aside here. The author offers a very sensible caution. We shouldn't go forcing some hidden mystical meaning into absolutely every single number we read. So, don't overdo it. But we definitely must recognize that God clearly uses intentional numerical patterns throughout the text to communicate much deeper spiritual truths that go way beyond mere accounting.
Let's move to and see how this builds in our final section, Section 4, the ultimate prophetic pattern.
If we zoom back out to the grand, unified narrative of the text, we can see exactly where all these patterns, symbols, and numbers are ultimately leading. The source asserts that the entire Old Testament forms a structural, step-by-step prophetic pattern. It begins with step 1, the Passover lamb, foreshadowing the ultimate sacrifice. Then it evolves into step 2, the Tabernacle, foreshadowing God dwelling directly among humanity. And it ultimately reaches its total, climactic fulfillment at step 3, the cross. Even elements like the manna in the wilderness and the bronze serpent were structurally, deliberately pointing toward this final, unified destination.
And this reveals the source's grand, unifying argument. Jesus Christ is the ultimate substance behind every single symbol. History isn't just a series of random, isolated events to God. It is one continuous, masterfully designed story. Every pattern, every piece of furniture in the tabernacle we decoded, every recurring number, it was all a shadow. And Jesus is the actual substance casting those shadows. Even the church today, with its diverse members acting as one interconnected body, is argued by the source to be a continuation of this deliberate heavenly design. Nothing, literally nothing, is without profound intention.
So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought today. The next time you open the text, what patterns will you find? The source challenges us not to just rush past the exact measurements, the repeating numbers, or the seemingly dry genealogies. Don't just collect flat information. Actively look for that hidden language of design. Because once you begin to recognize heaven's visual language, you realize it's not just a collection of historical stories. It is a divine masterpiece waiting to be deeply understood. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep looking for those patterns.